Hello, welcome to the Final Fantasy. Don't worry guys, it's just me. That was just my Cecil cosplay from Final Fantasy IV. Remember that? Apparently Final Fantasy IV is one of the best games ever made. I'm only just learning this. Well, you know what that means. We've entered the Super Nintendo era, the golden era of Final Fantasy. These are the big boys. Well, this and the PS1, this is when things get real good, and I'm very excited because I enjoyed this game. It was quite fun. Before we get into that, we gotta talk about naming because every Final Fantasy game has a weird naming thing. Let's do it. Okay, this was pretty well known, but yes, Final Fantasy 2 and 3 didn't come out in the US, but this franchise was really blowing up. Things were getting popular on both coasts, and they were like, we don't have time to just make 2 and bring it over, and 3. Also, they're not gonna like those, so let's just, alright, we're gonna put Final Fantasy 4 over, call it 2. They have the first one. This is 2. They're not gonna know the difference, it doesn't matter. And it really didn't, but this created a continuing slope of confusion. Like, what was their plan? They had to cut it off at some point if they were gonna unite the numbers, but now we just have like 4, 5, and 6 are 2, 3, and 4 in the US, and it just is awful. So there's that. But I learned another thing. Apparently, it's even more confusing because this game, the working title, was Final Fantasy V. Believe it or not. Like I said, the franchise was blowing up, and Square thought, okay, let's just do 2 at once. Let's do one team makes Final Fantasy IV, and one team makes 5. 4 will be on the NES, 5 will be on the Super Nintendo. 3 already came out late enough on the NES. People were kind of done with the thing, so what happened was 4 was scrapped, and they said, okay, change 5 to 4. So now, Americans played Final Fantasy 2, which was actually Final Fantasy 4, which in the beginning was known as Final Fantasy V. There was also another version of this game released later. It was easier for Americans. They released it in Japan as its own thing, and they just called it Final Fantasy IV Easy. Everyone was like, oh, that's the USA people, the Americans, they gotta play the easier version. We just had this reputation back in the day for like that we were just bad at everything, and we were dumb. We needed easier versions of every game. So that continues. I guess the one that came out in America was Final Fantasy IV Easy. I guess I'm not complaining because I still find these games hard. I don't know if I'm playing the easy or hard version. I played the complete collection on the PSP Vita, for real Vita, and this was remastered, new sprites, HD. It looks really nice. This actually came out after the 3D DS remake. It got the same treatment as FF3. I think this whole trilogy did. And I explained in the last review, I don't like that. The 3D look is bad. They scrap it together really quickly, and the art style is uninspired. It looks boring. The sprite art is so good in this game. I recommend playing this version. Also, it's the complete collection. It comes with the other 2 games, which we're not going to talk about for some time, because they came out way later. But yeah, there's a sequel to Final Fantasy IV. That's neat. The very first thing this game hits you with is like, oh, we're doing character development now. The main character is a Dark Knight. The last 3 games barely had main characters. They barely had names. This time you're playing as or is it Black Knight? I don't know. The one is all in purple or dark, and they use darkness, and they're like basically programmed at this point, a super soldier for the king to just do whatever he says. That's your main character right off the bat. They're like, ooh, how's that gonna go? And he's like slaughtering a village, and he starts to realize, maybe this is bad. I don't know. I'm regretting this slightly. Cecil in my head is played by Adam Driver, and it just fits so well. There's an actual character in the main character, and not just the main character. There's a full cast. I think this really actually broke new ground for RPGs, where it was like, hey, we can do a dramatic story. There's not it's not crazy, but it's there, and it's way bigger than the other games. You feel an emotional connection to the characters for the first time. I've been waiting for that, man. You got grumpy old man, mage guy, you got twin mages, a lot of mages actually. You have your best bud, who's a dragoon, who's like also kind of thinking about, maybe this is a bad idea, but then he gets possessed by the darkness guy, and you gotta be like, no, but we're friends and you have to help me. And he was like, no. And yeah, a lot of good stuff here. I don't want to spoil it. I think this is the first time I'm gonna put a spoiler alert. Not yet, but I will, because this game's cool. It's got some cool moments. Speaking of characters, we got a Sid update. Sid is here. He's like a really short, he was short in the last one. He's another short old guy with a beard. He kind of reminded me of like the engineer from TF2, because he is an engineer. He's wearing the goggles. He's got like a feathery, kind of gross beard, and he's like, "Woo-wee! We're gonna make this ship. Oh, you guys don't die on me now. Woohoo!" And he's part of your party. He was like a hammer. Sid's great. I love Sid. This is best Sid so far. Best Sid. A lot of Sids to go, but so far, best Sid. For the start of this new Super Nintendo trilogy, it's been great. But what about the battle system? So I didn't really know that Final Fantasy changed it up so much from game to game. This game introduces the active battle system, I think it's called, where you get like an ATB bar. It's not turns. Each character and enemy has a bar. It fills up, and then you can do a command. And you gotta just kind of race the clock. It's kind of really stressful, especially at first. You're like, oh my god, I gotta think about, I can't just stop. Even though you can stop. You can pause the game, but like in the moment, you're just like, okay, you attack, you gotta heal. Ooh, what spell to use? Oh my god, there's like 20 spells. I don't care about any of them except cure. Give me cure. And then cure the, do I split cast it? Do I do one? Do I wait a little bit because that enemy's about to attack? There's a lot of decisions you're making fast, which is not what I'm used to at all in this series. Apparently this is like the main style of combat for Final Fantasy. I didn't know, but that's cool. I would say I like this a lot better than what we've been getting. Not that it's objectively better than turn-based, but just everything coming together, this style is a lot better. So like the first game you had the basics, the second game scrambled it up like crazy, the third game said let's have jobs, the fourth game said active battle system, no more jobs. Well, not really. Each character that joins your party basically is in a job of their own. This is fantastic because one of my biggest complaints about 3 was there was freedom, but not really. You had to be certain jobs at certain places. So what happens is you can have up to 5 party members in this game. They just kind of come in and out, some of them leave. So at any given time, your party members are swapped in and out. You got to rethink your strategy and work with the jobs that you have. Cecil is the constant. He's like the warrior guy, of course. It's always the warrior, does a lot of damage. Like, I know it's mostly personal preference, but I struggle to see how people prefer 3 to this. Yeah, you got more options, more replay value, more customization, but this game deals you the cards and says, okay, you have everything you need, figure this out. Whereas 3 is like, you gotta find the cards. Okay, I choose these. Are these the right ones? No. So I lose? Yeah. Get new cards. But I trained these cards. Sorry, dude. You don't got a bard. It's like, I don't know. For me, I liked how they just gave you the guys that you needed. If you got a mage, you're gonna be needing to cure. Like, but it's also not that simple. It's definitely not easy. I struggle with this game a little. although it's not as hard as the other ones. And in playing this game, I realized another major problem with the last one. Whenever I opened a chest in a cave in this game, it was great. I either got a healing item, something useful, or a weapon for a character that I'm currently using. Why? Because the game knows what character I'm using. Obviously, I only have this party for this dungeon, so if I got a mage who needs a new staff, I might find a new staff. I didn't even realize in Final Fantasy III there's a bunch of loot, but you'll get things for the classes that you don't have. There's so many classes. They need to account for every possible weapon that you might need or armor that only a certain person can equip. So you'll go through like a whole side path. You'll be like, oh, this is definitely the wrong way. So there's gonna be something cool at the end of this. And then you find a chest and you get attacked by a mini boss or something and you're like, oh man, this loot's gonna be good. You kill the boss and it's like, oh wow, I got a good item for the Geomancer, which I don't have. And then that whole thing was wasted. But in this game, oh, you have 4 people in your party. The game knows if you find a little sidetrack with the mini boss, you're gonna get a cool sword for the character you actually play as. It's great. The story was great. The battle system was great. Little bit of problems. One, of course, is the stress. Like, there's a lot of pressure on you to make those decisions when you're fighting a big boss, and there's just a countdown. He's gonna use an attack at some point. You better do it. I didn't realize once you like click on magic and you get your selection of magic attacks to use, time freezes. Took me like 15 hours to realize that time froze. I don't know why it took me so long to realize it. Every battle was just like, okay, there's too many spells. I never used half of them, at least. Some of them are situational, some of them are just like too expensive or inaccurate to ever rely on. And then some of them are like cure. You're gonna need cure. So whenever I hit magic, I just scrolled through all the crap I didn't need. You can't throw it out, I don't think. And I was just like, where's cure there? And then use it. And yeah, that was stressful. I wish there was like, you can organize it, but there's always gonna be a spell that's like deep in the menus. Of course, this isn't a valid complaint because time freezes once you're ready to select magic. And I tried to go so fast that I just didn't realize that till 15 hours in the game. This game took me like 23 hours about, so yeah, most of the game was a little bit stressful. Here's a major actual complaint. If you do a misinput, you're screwed. In the other games, every game I've played on this show, if you do an attack and you move on to the next party member, you can press B and rethink your decision. Not this time. And you're going fast. So there was a few moments where I'm like, oh my god, just waiting for Rosa, the white mage, the bar to fill up so I can use cure on my whole team and heal us because we're about to die. The boss is about to do like a comet attack that blows everybody up. I need to cure. Come on, go. I press X too quickly and I end up not doing a split cast and only healing one guy. So I was just decimated by that next attack. I was so close. Misinput, you're screwed. It's real time. You can't go backwards in real time. So I have no idea how to fix that. But that is a major complaint. Maybe it's just me. If this is the norm for the rest of the series, I guess I'll get used to it. There are a couple other quality of life improvements that I absolutely loved. There's an item called the tent, which is present in like every game, where you just pitch it and you heal your party a little bit and magic. It's like a mini rest place. They're in all the games. They're only usable in the overworld field. So they are worthless. The overworld is the thing that connects you from the town to the cave where you do all the hard stuff and you can't use it in the cave. All, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not counting adventure. 5 games that I've played. all have tents. I've never even used a tent one time. When am I going to use a tent? When I'm dying in the dungeon? I can't. When I'm out, running to town? By that point, I'm done with what I'm doing. I probably have a cure spell. Or the boss healed me at the end, and I'm just waltzing all back home. Like, it was pointless. In this game, there are save points within the dungeons. Save points in the dungeons. Not only can you save, but these are special areas where you're allowed to use tents and cottages. They're little checkpoints, and they're beautiful additions to Final Fantasy. I hope those stay in. Yeah, so all of a sudden, tents are like required because you need them to get through the save points and stuff. They usually give you a save point before a boss. It's like, oh wow, they're being nice. I can't wait to play 5 and 6. Like the other 3 games, there's two final big dungeons that are super hard and filled with deadly enemies. And you get a save point. It just makes it so much easier, but not in a bad way. Like, I need this to not die and not hate myself after wasting 2 hours of traversing a dungeon that I die at the end because a random enemy shows up who gives me like a 10-second counter on one of my characters. I'm like, what's that? What happens when it hits 0? What happens when it hits 0? Instant death. Good thing I had a save point. It still took me a long time to get through that final dungeon, by the way. That's been consistent. The final dungeon in Final Fantasy games so far are brutal. They hurt so much. This is the easiest one to get through because of the save points. But the final boss is still like, oof. We're going to get into story, spoiler alerts. I know I didn't really say anything about the story yet, but there's one thing that happens early that I want to talk about, so skip to this part. I love the idea of playing as the Dark Knight, struggling, going through this thing to like become a good person after all the terrible things he's done. Like, that's cool. In the first 3 hours, you climb a mountain, and at the top of it, you realize your true potential. He changes it to literal white knight armor and becomes a paladin. And it's like, that's not a bad thing that happened. It just, I thought that would be his arc throughout the game. Like, maybe it would, closer to the end, you'd get that. But no, it's like kind of a bait and switch. Once again, the main character is just a knight. Not that he becomes a dumb character. It's just the change. Like, you hooked me with this premise, and now it's just, if this is his character arc, what's more to come? He's become a white knight. I thought that was like the end goal. Because there was also a struggle of like Rosa, the love interest, is like, oh, we can't be together. You're a black knight, and they can't do anything because they can only think to kill. Like, they're not human. We can't date. And then they like make out at the end of that part of the game. It's like, is this not ending stuff? That bothered me a little. But the story is cool. You go on the quest. It's another crystal quest, so it's not anything too crazy, but it's like a race to get the crystals before the bad guy. But then, of course, the bad guy's not really the bad guy. There's another big bad behind him, and you gotta go to the moon to stop him. You go to the moon in this game! Like, wow, I didn't expect Final Fantasy to go to space on the 4th one, but I'm here for it. You encounter alien creatures that you fight. You find out that you're a Lunarian. Cecil is a Lunarian, which is like a person who lives on the moon. Your brother was the first evil guy, and now you got to come to terms with the fact that your brother has been terrorizing you this whole time. And there's like a lesson of, well, there's a little bit of darkness in everybody. You just got to make sure you call out to a little bit of light instead. I see why people kind of ignore the NES trilogy and just say, beginners, jump into this one. This would be a good one. That's not to say it's not hard. It could mess you up a little bit. There are some like gimmick bosses that I could not figure out. Some of the side quests are really hard. But overall, just like a really nice RPG. A good experience. I'm very excited to jump into the Golden Age. Unfortunately, there was one more Game Boy game that came out right after. So, I'm really over the Game Boy. I'm not excited for... I really just want to like play 5. But what can I say? I gotta review them all. We knew there would be hard times. There would be ups and there would be downs. And this is an up, and I'm about to go into a down. It's all good because we're gonna have an up after that. Okay? Oh my god, it's so hot.